Hello, and welcome back. You're listening to Unreliable Sources, your biweekly briefing for mystery lovers, thriller junkies, and suspense addicts. I'm Mike Donohue, thriller author and crime fiction fan. Let's get into it. On today's show, we're diving into the death of narrative podcasts, RIP serial, taking a hard look at the beautiful disaster that is Goodreads, checking out some exciting fall adaptations hitting screen soon. We'll also run through the latest releases worth your attention, explore how Hitchcock's suspense techniques still influence modern thrillers, and I'll let you in on what I've been reading and watching lately. Let's roll. Let's kick things off with some recent book and genre news headlines. Remember when Serial took over the cultural conversation back in 2014? Rolling Stone just published a fascinating piece about the rise and fall of narrative podcasts. Shows like Serial, Dirty John, and In the Dark dominated the 2010s, but now they're essentially dead. Turns out the economics never quite worked. These deep dive investigations cost a fortune to produce, and audiences have moved on to quicker hits. It's a real loss for storytelling, especially since these shows introduce millions of people to the art of long-form crime narratives. Slate recently examined what they call the beautiful hellscape that is Goodreads, and honestly, that phrase nails it. Look, we all have a complicated relationship with the platform. Is it intuitive? Absolutely not. Beautiful? The site is beige, sluggish, and the search function seems actively hostile to users. But here's the thing, it somehow all works. For its flaws, it's still where book lovers go to discover, track, and argue about what they're reading. Why hasn't something better come along to replace it? I think part of it's just the first mover advantage. They got there early, accumulated all our data, our shelves, our reading history. But I think there might be something deeper too. Sometimes the ugly, clunky tools are the ones that stick around because they do the basic job without getting in their own way. There's no feature creep. Goodreads might look like it was designed in 2005, but that also means it's not constantly changing or trying to be too clever. Sometimes boring reliability wins out over sleek innovation. All right, how about a Bouchercon wrap-up? The world's largest mystery convention just finished down in New Orleans, and by all accounts, it was fantastic for reconnecting the community. Authors, readers, and industry folks gathered to celebrate all things crime fiction. Major guests of honor were Craig Johnson, Alex Segura was the Toastmaster, Brad Thor was there, and Steph Chaw was the thriller guest of honor. Anthony winners included The God of the Woods by Liz Moore and You Know What You Did by KT Wim. The Barry Award went to Ordinary People by C.B. Bernard. The convention mixed serious crime fiction discussion with classic New Orleans culture and Southern hospitality. Now, get ready for a little radio action. Next year's convention moves to Calgary, Alberta, October 21st through the 25th, 2026. Finally, wrapping up the news segment, a small mystery solved. Maybe a bit too soon? There is an upcoming crime thriller that made some waves recently, The Ending Writes Itself, by the mysterious Evelyn Clark. Well, the secret didn't last that long. It's been revealed as a collaboration between V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. The publishing satire/thriller won't even be out until April 2026, and the pen name's already been blown. Sort of like what used to happen when you tell my 6-year-old a secret. All right, now let's take a look at what's new and notable on shelves. The Whisper Place by Mindy Mejia, the third Iowa Mystery Series book that features a former police officer and a psychic. This time, when a man walks into their office searching for his missing girlfriend without a past or even a name, Max and Jonah realize their newest client may present their biggest challenge yet. Their first task, find out why he refuses to go to the police. Next up, The Wasp Trap by Mark Edwards. Edwards returns here with another domestic thriller that promises to keep you guessing. A dinner party in a beautiful Notting Hill townhouse turns into a sinister game as 6 old friends and workmates are forced to spill their darkest secrets. Fiend by Alma Katsu. You might know Katsu from her historical horror novels like The Hunger. But this time, the author has set her story in contemporary times. The Berisha family has always been told they are blessed. But what happens when the blessing turns out to actually be a curse, and the family's carefully structured lives begin to fall apart? While we, or at least I, am waiting for Slow Horses Season 5 to drop on Apple TV next week, here are a few other adaptations that have hit or will hit big and small screens soon. The Girlfriend on Amazon Prime, based on Michelle Francis's domestic psychological thriller about mother-in-law relationships gone very, very wrong. Highest to Lowest. This one has a bit of a wild adaptation history. It was originally a novel in Ed McBain's 87th Precinct, The King's Ransom, and was adapted by Akira Kurosawa in 1963 as High and Low. This time around, Spike Lee and Denzel Washington have now readapted it for Apple TV as Highest to Lowest. Finally, The Man in My Basement. Walter Mosley's psychological thriller hits theaters, or is in theaters now, and drops on Hulu September 26th. Now, Mosley writes some brilliant mystery series like Easy Rollins or Lennon McGill, but he also ventures into sometimes truly strange territory, and the source material here appears to be one of those ventures. All right, let's move on to this episode's feature. Hitchcock's suspense DNA in the modern thriller. Look, I've been trying to introduce my daughters to Hitchcock's work lately. Thank you, library and old DVD player. But it's no small feat considering they're not exactly fans of black and white movies or really, quote, old movies. Old, of course, being anything pre-2015. But honestly, it's wild how these techniques still work on modern audiences. There's something almost scientific about the way Hitchcock crafted fear. Like he had this secret formula for reaching into your brain and flipping the anxiety switch, regardless of when you were born. Now, Alfred Hitchcock died in 1980s, but his fingerprints remain all over almost every thriller you read or watch today. The master of suspense didn't just make great movies, he essentially wrote the playbook for how to keep audiences on the edge of their seats. Whether authors realize it or not, they're using techniques Hitchcock perfected decades ago. And as readers, once you start noticing these patterns, you can't unsee them, which honestly makes you appreciate the craft even more. First up, the MacGuffin. Hitchcock gave us this term for the thing that drives the plot, but ultimately doesn't matter. The briefcase in Pulp Fiction, the Maltese Falcon, the missing girl in Gone Girl. What matters isn't the object itself, but how desperately characters want it. Modern thriller writers use MacGuffins constantly. The missing memory stick, the incriminating photo, the secret that could destroy everything. It's often the inciting incident or engine that gets the story moving. Next up, ordinary people in extraordinary situations. Hitchcock loved taking regular folks, a tennis player, a photographer, a crop duster, and dropping them into nightmarish circumstances. Today's psychological thrillers follow the same pattern. Think about Harlan Coben's characters or Stephen King's. They're suburbanites, journalists, people you might know, until murder and betrayal turn their lives upside down. The relatability makes the terror more immediate. The ticking clock with style. Hitchcock didn't just give his characters deadlines. He made audiences painfully aware of time running out. That bomb under the table that the audiences know about, but the characters don't? Modern thrillers do this constantly, building dread through information asymmetry. When you know something terrible is coming, but the protagonist doesn't, that's pure Hitchcock DNA. Misdirection and red herrings. Not to be confused with the MacGuffin, but the master was brilliant at making you look left while the real action happened to the right. Contemporary thriller writers have turned misdirection into an art form. When executed well, it adds depth and subtle layers to a story as the protagonist works his way through the clues. Unrelatable narrators, false clues, characters who seem guilty until they don't. It's all evolved partially from Hitchcock's playbook. Voyeurism and guilt. Hitchcock understood that audiences are essentially voyeurs, and he made us complicit in watching. Modern psychological thrillers play with this same discomfort. When you're reading about a stalker's methods or a killer's psychology, you're engaging in the same guilty pleasure Hitchcock exploited in Rear Window or Vertigo. Finally, the wrong person. One of his favorite setups was an innocent person accused of a crime they didn't commit. This trope is everywhere in contemporary thrillers, from legal procedurals to domestic suspense. The desperate scramble to prove innocence while evidence mounts against you. That's vintage Hitchcock pressure applied to modern storytelling. Now, what makes Hitchcock's influence so enduring is that he understood something fundamental about human psychology. We love being scared in a controlled environment. The best modern thriller writers tap into these same primal fears while updating the delivery system for contemporary audiences. It's similar to the tropes we talked about in the last episode. Okay, Hitchcock might not have literally invented all of these techniques, but he did elevate them with sublime and ruthless execution. The key to effectiveness here is awareness, breathing new life into them, and Hitchcock did that with undisputed skill. He honed them to a razor's edge. The next time you're reading or watching a thriller and your heart starts racing, remember, you're feeling the ghost of Hitchcock's genius at work. All right, let's finish up this episode on a personal note. I'm currently reading The Frozen People by Ellie Griffiths, a book I mentioned a few episodes ago. I'm just starting this one, but I'm a big fan of Griffiths' other various series, and I'm looking forward to this genre mashup. There is time travel involved in the mystery, with high expectation. Griffith has a real gift for blending cozy mystery elements with darker psychological depth. On audio, I've just finished She Rides Shotgun by Jordan Harper. This Edgar Award winner absolutely earned its reputation. It's a brutal, beautiful father-daughter story wrapped up in a crime thriller that doesn't pull any punches. Harper's prose hits like a jab to the gut in the best possible way. The audio is a single narrator, David Marantz, and he reads it straight. No fancy voices, just pure storytelling muscle. This was recently adapted with a limited theatrical release and should hit streamers by the end of the year. Taron Egerton stars in the lead role. On the TV front, as I mentioned, I'm catching up on some Slow Horses episodes before Season 5 drops next week. This season will be based on London Rules. I've read all the books that the season so far have been based on, so no big surprises coming from me. I'm just taking it slow and savoring the performances. Gary Oldman continues to be absolute perfection as Jackson Lamb. All right, that's it for this week's episode. Let me leave you with the question. What's your relationship with Goodreads like? Love it? Hate it? Is it somewhere in between? Are you one of those people who meticulously tracks every book? Or do you just lurk and judge other people's reading choices? And while we're at it, do you miss those long-form narrative podcasts? Or are you happy with the quicker true crime recap shows we get now? Drop me a line with your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you navigate the wild world of book discovery and crime podcasts. You can email me at mikedonahuebooks.com or find me on Blue Sky at MikeDMystery or on Instagram at MikeDonahueBooks. This has been Unreliable Sources. I'm Mike Donohue. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay sharp, follow the clues, and never trust anyone who skips to the end.